A little bit of all of the above. I'll start out just reeling it in at a steady retrieve. If that doesn't seem to work, I'll give it a little bit of a spinnerbait motion where I'll kind of pull it, reel in the slack, pull it again. I'll also use a technique where I let it get caught in the grass and rip it out of the grass. You really have to attempt every different way to do it and try everything and see what the fish tell you they want.
Yeah, a lot of times people don't fish this bait as early as they really should. This is a lot of people think this is a warm bait, you know, warm time bait. Okay, so we had to switch gears again because we got blown off of everything. And again, in the springtime, you can still throw plastic baits. A jig would be fine, and you threw what commonly called a creature bait, right?
Yep, that's a plain simple Yamamoto creature bait in watermelon black, and it's pretty simple. I threw it on a regular standard jig head and flipped it into the timber, and we caught a couple fish on it. You know, we attempted to fish the stumps, isolated stumps. We fished laydowns, and it seemed that once we got in the cove out of the wind, I key in out of the wind, then we were able to sit down and try to pick it apart, and that's where we got into the success with the fish and the trees.
Right, and that was the wood that they were just laying around. Again, probably just waiting to make their nest there, to spawn, or just hanging on those stumps. And it's warmer there.
Yeah, that wood's going to keep that water temperature a degree warmer than out of it. And that's what those small male bass that we were catching, that's what their job is at this time of the year. They go around and they search for those areas where they can make the beds, and the females kind of hang back in that deeper water until the water temperature, like we were saying, gets up in the mid-50s, up around that 60-degree mark. That's when you really have that influx of the bigger females get into the shallow waters.
And then the soft stick baits here, we got the old Senko lookalikes or whatever we want to call them. Again, wacky rigging it, just throwing it in there. Again, that slow presentation will just bring those bass off of that stuff.
Yep, it doesn't pose a threat to them. It's a slow presentation. It's a subtle presentation. And again, with the water temps floating around 50 degrees, just below, just above, the bass aren't really moving to search for food.
Right.
They're more in an ambush kind of, I'll hit it if it's right in front of me type of
Right,
movement.
and as this thing just glides down through that water column, they're able to pick that up and they'll just pick it up and walk away. Okay, now, the secret when you have these soft baits is a little bit of this stuff. It's called Mega Strike. This is important to have at this time of the year, not all the other times of the year, but now this is really good because this will get the fish to hold on to. Tell us a little bit about Mega Strike.
Well, Mega Strike is biologically engineered to keep the fish holding on. It's made up of proteins and amino acids. It's not an oil-based, so you're not going to get that oil slick on top of the water. It's a gel formula, and it really works out well the way that it works to get the fish to hold on. It's basically tricking the fish into thinking that what it's holding on to is alive, because the fish know they need those amino acids and proteins to survive, and when they hit your lure and they sense those amino acids and proteins are there, they assume that it's real and they hold on to it.
And they will hold on to it.
And on a day like today, when you need every edge you can possibly get, we see that it worked well.
And it does, and it's easy to apply. You just take the cap and just add it on there and just, you don't need a whole lot.
I put a drop on my finger about the size of a pea, you know, something real small, and I just rub it on the Senko, or I was even putting it on the jerk baits today. The one thing that's nice about it is it's good for everything. You can use it on hard baits, you can use it on plastics, and it really does make a difference, as we saw today.
And I've used it in a lot of times on the soft plastics, and it has made the difference a lot of times when you will catch that tougher fish because it holds on to that stuff. Right, now I'm going to talk about something else tough. Your great boat here. It's a jet boat, good for fishing smallmouth in the river, which I do know. About seeing you catch fish, at least that much.
The one day the camera's not there.
The rhino liner that you have in this boat, talk about a little bit about it. I think this is unbelievable for a boat that you use like this.
Well, it is great. I use it with guiding on the river. I have people on the boat all the time. You know, when I originally bought the boat, there was a vinyl material on it. It kept peeling off. It was getting very cumbersome to try to maintain. The one thing that's nice about the rhino liner is it's permanent. It's in here for good. It has a lifetime warranty with it. And it gets a little tacky. So even if it's wet, you have a fish on board, it's raining out, you don't have to worry about slipping and sliding all over an aluminum boat. It actually will work well with keeping your feet planted.
Yeah, and it's actually it's kind of weird because you're in an aluminum boat, but it's actually makes you soft. It feels, it's rugged. I mean, you can't hurt this
No,
stuff.
it's in there. It's permanent, and it's rugged, it's rough, it's durable. I mean, I've thrown stuff in here, you know, throwing coolers in here loaded with ice, with fish, my herring tank when we're striper fishing, and it just takes a beating. And I can't speak too highly about it. It's a great thing.
Yeah, because when you first put it in, I was amazed at how it came, because I've been in both sides of your boat, the other stuff and this. One of the things that I want to get back to before we end is that the rod that you're going to throw these baits on. Talk a little bit about the fishing rod that you would.
Sure.
About that.
I try to throw with a jerkbait bite. I try to throw about a 7-foot medium action rod. It's got a nice fast taper to it, so if a fish comes up and does hit it, and you're in the process of, you know, your jerk pause, you're not going to pull that lure out of his mouth because it's got that medium action to it. I'm not going to fish a very stiff rod with a jerkbait, just like a crankbait rod. And, you know, 7-foot medium action, I was throwing 12-pound test on a spinning reel, and it makes a difference.
Yeah, the spinning reel is probably the best way to go with the jerkbait situation. You can do it with a regular reel, but I think the spinning reels work much better for that. And again, I do want to emphasize that tip is really important with that, because if you have a real stiff fishing rod, it's not going to let that fish, the bait wiggle.
No, it's not going to allow that bait to have the action that you want. That nice soft tip as you're jerking and pausing is really getting that bait to kind of scatter off side to side and make it look like it's a bait fish in distress, which is in turn going to trigger the reaction in the bass and the pike and the pickerel.
And all the stuff that we caught. And that's the tackle box.
Well, Bob, as we were talking about getting lucky and having some of the little bit of a bigger fish in this cover here.
And they're just the males that are still sticking up in there.
Yep.
Hey, Warren, I want to thank you an awful lot, my friend.
Anytime.
And we had a good time. Again, when you're out here, it's springtime, conditions are tough, but again, what Warren had mentioned before was you got to try different things and let the fish talk to you a little bit. We had a jerkbait bite going, but we got blown off, and so we had to switch. So we back into a cove, and we'll flip in some creature baits and some Senko type baits, and it's working out. Hey, I'm Bob Murray. I'll see you on the water. All right, Warren.
All right.